Today I'm planning on going to the cinema again. I want to watch Justice League, but first, I'm going to take him to school. Time to head off to the cinema. I'm really pushing it today, trying to squeeze this movie in because it's not exactly a short movie. Have you heard of ABC? Of course you have. What I mean is, have you heard of ABC in relation to electric cars? It stands for Always Be Charging. At least it's a nice sunny day. Get my batteries all charged up. Okay, so that was nothing like as good, I thought, as Thor, but it's still a reasonably good movie. And now the movie watching binge is over. So what's the ABC of charging? Basically, always be charging. A saying that sort of came about with the sort of the lower range EVs a few years ago. That's when it was sort of mainly heard, and it kind of makes sense because the problem with an EV is because they charge a lot slower than, say, you know, refilling your petrol tank. It means that you don't have flexibility unless you're already at a fairly high state of charge. So that's basically why I always plug the car in, because I always want it to have a reasonably decent amount of power in it. Yes, I don't have to. I could just let it run all the way down to sort of 30-35% over the course of the day and then charge it all the way back up to 70. But if I plug in when I get home, then it just sort of goes between 50 and 70 or 60 and 70 all day long, and it means that should I want to suddenly go, you know what, actually somebody else is picking up Jasper, I've got an emergency up at my parents' house 75 miles away, I can just drive there. No consideration on having to stop and charge or anything like that. Now, when you have a bigger battery, it does give you flexibility, but here's the thing, it only gives you flexibility if it's charged. I suppose this is sort of born of the piece of news that I heard recently that Honda reckon they're going to have a car, an electric vehicle that will charge in 15 minutes, something like 120 miles probably. I mean, they actually said 150 miles, but I'm assuming they're using this sort of Japanese driving cycle, which is like totally unachievable. So 120 miles in 15 minutes, which is pretty good. That's, you know, a bit more than you'd get from a Tesla supercharger, quite a bit more. Here's the thing, is it really necessary? Because most of the time you wake up with a full charge, in theory. Over time, and by that I mean sort of over the next year or two, it'll be quite tricky to buy an electric vehicle with less than 150 miles of real world range, because people will basically just stop making them. And there are still quick chargers out there for when you do those longer journeys, and if you've got a bigger battery, then it gives you the ability to choose when you want to charge on that longer journey. And if you're going to drive from here to Yorkshire, it's 1 o'clock now, the chances are you're going to want either lunch, dinner or a coffee or the toilet somewhere on that journey, so you know, a bit of en route charging is no issue. And of course you get to your destination in Yorkshire, let's say for example, plug in, charge, and then you can just drive straight home. So yeah, always be charging. Good little saying. Quick bit of shopping to do now. I love it when the weather's like this. A bit of sunshine, I feel so much more energized and motivated. Okay, they should put like little hooks in here so your bag doesn't fall over. Yeah, in fact maybe this is better off in the front. Time for some lunch. I'm starving at the moment because I'm basically deliberately starving myself. I'm trying to lose some weight, and as I don't seem to ever find the time to do serious quantities of exercise, I am doing that by just trying to not eat anything before lunch, you know, apart from a couple of coffees. I'll let you know how that goes in a couple of weeks, if I survive. You know, while I was at the cinema, I should have got a couple of buckets and some sponges so that I could clean my car properly, but I don't reckon I'm going to get the chance anyway for a few days. The problem is, there are just some kinds of movies which are better at the cinema. They just are. Like the big blockbustery kind of big explosion, Marvel, DC comic, they're just better at the cinema. At least that's what I think. Maybe if we had a better TV at home, I wouldn't think that, but as it is, yeah, better at the cinema. Always be charging. Okay. So still pretty charged, but and give it a quick zap whilst I go grab Jasper. You know, always charging and all that, because I'm gonna need some power when I get back. Put in 14 miles. Oh, wind's closing the door for me. I have just heard that Jasper's been really good at school. You know why you got a cough? It's because you don't wear enough clothes. You need to wear your jumper, Jasper. Okay, I'm going to be in the process of making Jasper dinner in a minute, and need to put my latest video up as well. So I just thought I would round off what I've been saying today about charging, because I suppose this is kind of the main part of that change in mindset that comes with electric vehicles. Because with a petrol or diesel, whatever, there's so much flexibility due to the speed of refilling that what people do is they just don't think about it, and they go, oh my goodness, I've got 50 miles left in my tank, I must stop and get fuel. And that usually falls as an inconvenient point. Like last night, Soph, she's on the way home, I give her a ring, we're chatting, and she goes, oh yeah, I just have to stop for fuel. It was really annoying because she wanted to get back in time to say goodnight for Jasper, which she only just did, but she lost 5 minutes, 10 minutes of that Jasper time because she was, you know, pumping gas into her car. If she'd had an electric vehicle, she would have just been fully charged when she left in the morning, she would have come home, it wouldn't have mattered if it was empty when she got back because it would be fully charged the next morning. So that's the sort of the upside of electric vehicles, but it's also the downside as well, because it takes a while to charge usually, certainly longer than 5 minutes. For example, take Soph, right? Let's say that she had an electric vehicle that could get her to work and back, which is about 50 miles away. So, you know, a good 120 to 150 mile range in her EV. It would still make sense for her to charge at work if she can, because it means that if she then decided, actually, I'm not gonna go home, I have to go see some customer that's 100 miles away, it wouldn't be a massive problem. It wouldn't be something that she wouldn't be able to do. She would have that flexibility because the car will have charged. Got to admit it, I don't like to admit it, but I've got to. You do have slightly less flexibility with an EV because you can't fill the battery anything like as quickly as you can fill a petrol or diesel tank. And the only real defense against that is to either have insanely quick charge times, and I think a 5-minute charge time for hundreds of miles is probably still quite a long way off from a pure physics and science and engineering standpoint. However, what's not such a long way off is having a 500 mile battery. Well, if you've got a 500 mile battery and you make sure that you've got at least 400 miles in it, generally speaking, otherwise you try and plug it in, then the end result is you've got all the flexibility you could ever want, because, you know, it's almost impossible to drive 300 miles without needing to stop for some reason, whether that's the loo or food or sleeping. You know, there will be a reason why you need to stop. So therefore you'll be able to charge. And 500 mile range batteries are going to be here within a handful of years. the Tesla Roadster for one. I mean, that's going to be an insanely expensive car, of course, but those batteries will wind up in general purpose vehicles, I strongly believe, over time. I think if you've got a battery of that size in your car, it definitely makes proper sense to have it integrated into the house's electronics, the solar panels, the inverters, hopefully, that people will have in their homes. So it's definitely a message of hope and not one of, oh, we're going to lose something terrible when everyone drives EVs. It's going to be a real nightmare keeping them charged. And oh, you know, I mean, I don't find there's any difficulty. There's a little bit more to think about. But if the range of the car was twice what it is, then there would be nothing to think about. And then it just becomes a case of, well, isn't it wasteful lugging all those batteries around? Well, it's only wasteful lugging all those batteries around if there's no integration with the home and with the grid. If you have that integration, then I wouldn't even say it was wasteful. I would say actually it was perfectly fine. Right, I think that's the end of today's video because I've got to do the dinner. I hope you've enjoyed today's video. If you have, remember to like it, share it and subscribe if you haven't already, and follow me on Instagram if you don't already, and I will see you tomorrow for the next installment of my daily vlog. Bye. I think what I'm going to do today while I wait for Jasper is review some of this AI code that I've been working on in the past and try and get my head around exactly what it means. I know the changes I want to make. The problem is I need to work out how to make them. This did used to make sense to me.